It's Zip again, along with Ellie Dog, and we're at the Ellis Estate property with some very rich sisters owned at one point in time, and they had a really big, nice house up in here. It's a beautiful property when it was when they must have owned it. Well, I've done a bunch of work here over the years since I moved here about 6 years ago. Kind of spin back around. You see that road there? I live kind of off that road. I don't know, about a quarter mile from here. Not far at all. All right. Again, we're kind of here at the parking lot. There's a Countryway in Situate. This is kind of the parking lot. And when I started coming here, this was all briars. You can kind of see some of the green briar hanging from that tree. A little bit from that tree. But it's been about 5 years since I've done this project. Things have grown in really well. I came up here soon after, the spring after I moved here, and you could barely walk down this trail. In fact, everybody walked out of the parking lot to the access road to the other trails that were existing. Now, again, my signature. All the limbs are off the trees. All the green briars are down. There's a lot of oriental bittersweet on this property. Oh my gosh. You kind of came up here. And again, it's hard to really, that birdhouse has been there for a really long time. Even before I started this project. But the main trail used to go this way here. And again, that whole area has been worked at one point or another. But most people will come up the road and walk that way on the Bailey Ellis Loop Trail. We'll go back down this way. We're on the Yellow Trail. Now, when I started doing this project, nobody walked on this trail. It was kind of unwalkable because of the briars up ahead here. I mean, even that holly tree was really poking you when you try to come around it. You know, all these holly trees poke at you. But they've definitely been all trimmed back. They'll grow over my head. There'll be a big, beautiful holly tree someday. Maybe not in my lifetime. Right overhead is the wires for the power. I don't know if that's actually telephone we're looking at. That's right here over our heads. Powers are up there. Looks awful dangerous, I know. Look at the old climbing pegs on up there. I don't know if you can see them. I think actually they're like a wire peg. I don't know what they were for, but they're old. They're like old knots in a tree that were all hammered out. So now I come up here, and again, this trail was unused. I remember the first time I walked down on it, and I said, this trail could use my work, could use my help. And you couldn't really see. You don't really see that I've been in here, like that's untouched. All in there. Little cedar right there. It's all dead. There's a bunch of cedars in here. Look at this old pine right here. This was definitely a standalone pine. It's such a beautiful tree. It's kind of close to the end of its lifespan, but it's beautiful. That's been 400 plus years standing there, maybe 450. That would make it older than the town. I'm kind of interested to measure it and see what it was. And it could have been there. It might never have been clear. It'd be interesting to look at the old photos of the area. And there's a really nice holly tree there. And I've definitely done some pruning to that. I don't remember what. Continuing down this trail here. Now, one thing I noticed when I was here, especially when we get up here, was, especially right here, this is all briar. It's hard to really explain. This whole trail, you could barely walk down, and people had cut the briars from the trail so that you could come through it, but in a couple of weeks, it just closed back up again. But now that I trimmed all the branches, but what I noticed is I walked over to that stone wall once. There's an old campsite that I remember hanging out as a kid over to the west of us. And I walked a couple 30 feet into the woods, and the woods were clear. And I'm looking around, I'm like, oh, the deer are in here. And the only reason the deer weren't clearing this trail was that there was too many briars here and the people were here. So they were keeping just beyond that stone wall there clear. And it's hard to really, I'm kind of glad you really can't tell that I've been here. But if I hadn't been here, you'd really know. I found some artifacts in there, a couple of things. I don't dig anymore for artifacts. I look for pillows to take them from. I think that I have too many other things going on. But now as you come down here, you'll see, again, this is all green briar growing right across the trail. The trail existed. I didn't build the trail. I just made it wider. Made it so you can kind of see through. Well, I didn't take everything down. You know, just basically making a corridor. Because the deer won't come eat where people walk. When they smell dogs, they want 10 feet from you. Looking for this. So we come down here. That campsite is right over there somewhere. I've been to it before, but we won't go there today. And in here someplace is a cedar tree that I saved. A couple of them. I guess it's back that way somewhere. We'll look for it when we come back. What's really interesting is from the old sheeping days, or the old ways, we come up to another one of these rock corridors that would have been access. You know, and I'm not sure they ever split up the property, but this is probably given access during the sheeping days of around the Civil War. So somebody on that edge purchased rights to come down here with their animals. The corridor goes straight through, which is kind of interesting. Which is probably not why it was there. But as we come down here, you'll get into the area of Deek's Pond. Allie, you gonna go swimming in there, really? Oh. So, Deek's Pond, if you go down stream a little bit from there. There used to be a dam down there, but this is all springs. You can kind of see that there was a pool built right there, and there was a couple of other pools, and you can't really see it, but there's a pool back there, there's a pool here, and there's some other, this might have been dug out, but again, Deeks Pond, you can't really see right now, which is down there. We'll see a little better on the way back. But Deeks Pond had a dam on it, and it was probably 4 or 5 feet. It was like a private swimming pool. Back in the days, they dammed up that spring. I mean, I'm not quite sure who owned the property originally, right after the Indians, after they kicked the Indians off the land. But as we come back up here, all through here. Now, when I came back from Colorado, when I was younger, the trail used to go that way. But before, the trail was over here on this side. But yes, a tree had fallen, and it was all these briars and stuff. So I cut it back to where it was. Yeah, a long time ago. But like you can see here, all them green briars are up there. The holly tree's all been limbed. Now, if you come up here in the winter time, when there's snow on the ground, I got some photos of it, but you'll see the deer have been digging in the leaves under every one of these holly trees when there's snow, because it's shallow. See the hoof prints coming all the way through. And again, you can see that holly tree there. I haven't done every tree in the space or tried to really control it. Really just tried to get the corridor to open up. Like that tree there, it's got a little bit of briar growing back up on it. But again, that tree was covered in green briar. So was that tree, so was that tree, so was that tree. And they were bridging the trail, so they would just keep dropping down. You know, they can kind of see over there in the woods how it is natural. There's a lot of deer here. You'll see Allie pointing at it. You can kind of see in here the ground's all wet again. Again, this is all springs. I bet before people started pumping a lot of groundwater out of the area here, this was just bountiful water. Bountiful. You kind of go up here and stand on that yellow trail. There's one little cedar here that I tried to save. It's got all the green briar off the very, very top, still living. But it's pretty dark in there. I don't know. It might live. We'll see. A whole bunch in here haven't. Another one right there, another big one over there. I've been over to that one too. Done a little bit of trimming around it. There's one right here that's gone. Walking up here. This tree fell, and I didn't cut it. This guy, MR. I gotta start leaving a brand when I cut a trail thing down. I've seen that a couple times now. Now in here's another. It's like almost always stays wet in here, and even in the winter. It's really hard to. It's really wet. I've been thinking about making this trail go around this different way. Yes, I'm good. It's interesting how it went from yellow to double yellow. But as we walk up here, heading up towards the old house or the mansion, these really cool steps right here. Something's living under that step. But there must have been a path that went that way. So that trail comes up kind of where we're looking at. I've been meaning to go cut one kind of down this way and around that muddy spot, but I have a lot of irons in the fire. But that's a really nice set of old stairs there. It's amazing. With those springs there, you know we're, I don't know, half a mile, 3/4 from salt water. I'm sure the Indians knew that spring was there. I haven't found a ton of supporting artifacts here, but this area was farmed, so who knows how much was done. So now in here to my left, we're walking, there's an old garden. And it looked like maybe in the 70s or in the 80s, somebody had rehabbed the garden and was growing stuff there. But it's all overgrown now. And in here is kind of cool. It's really, I was in here this winter cutting this oriental bittersweet out of here. I got some photos. There's a couple of trees in here. Been saved a couple times from it. There's one right ahead. You can't really see it. One right there. You can really, if you look at it really closely, you can see all the ripples in it. And that wasn't actually for me. That was from someone else cutting it. And there's one over here. I'll back up a little bit more. The center fork in that tree. I guess the light's not real good. I got some stills of it in the winter. But someone cut that all off, and it kind of somehow got up over there, and I got that off, so it's kind of free of it. This whole garden, I'm coming up to the old Ellis Estate house where the old ladies lived. Now owned by the Situate Art Association. Look at that. Look at that bittersweet right there. I'm pretty sure it's actually oriental, but someone weaved it together. And it runs all the way up into them trees. But that is definitely oriental bittersweet. That was a long time ago that was weaved together. And throughout, you kind of see it in the garden. Wow, a lot of people up here today. That's kind of amazing. That's awesome. I haven't seen anybody up here. One or two people, a caretaker, that's it. So this is the end of the access road. We'll go this way here, a little bit down this yellow trail. We'll stop, turn around, and look at the building. It is definitely a beautiful Victorian era building. And in the 80s, it was falling down. It was in really bad shape, and they fixed it up. It was in tough shape back then. We won't go far. I'm just going to come down here back into the wood a little bit. Take a look again at the other side of this garden. Now, in the wintertime, I went all the way through here. You get all the bittersweet, all the big green briar brambles that were in there, and cut them down, left all the grapevines. So Give this 10 or 15 years to mature. Maybe I'll come back and finish it off. And it should be an interesting forest instead of a bunch of bent over trees. I mean, like, that's more grapevine than anything that killed that tree. But as we come back, you'll see this tree here had quite a bit of bittersweet on it. Up into that tree. You can still see it all up in that. But look at that. That tree's coming back a little. All that bittersweet on top is dead. That was totally covered. And I don't even know what kind of tree it is, but it's still better than that bittersweet. All right, well, that gets us kind of a tour of the Yellow Trail here. I got a couple other things to show around here, but that kind of shows that. Now, I've gone all the way through this forest, almost to the road, all the way around the house, getting the bittersweet out. By no means have I gotten all the way through that forest. It's everywhere. But I have gotten from here to the access kind of road again. We'll take a walk over there. You know, all through here, if you go through in there, there's ditches, old water ditches in there from irrigation setups. We'll walk over here in the back here where no one else ever walks. This is the back side of that garden. So nice to see a understory coming back and a upper story instead of the whole upper story being dominated by these vines. You can kind of see they're still dominated by grapes for sure, but I leave that for the birds, I guess. I don't know. They tend to be like it was being here. Right over here is one of the very large bittersweet collections, or pieces that I cut. You can kind of see it right there. Because that's not even any buds coming up from that. I mean, I just killed it by chomping it off. But then all the way up into that tree. Dominating that tree. Is it a beech tree? It looks like a beech tree to me. And again here we have this access road. 2 stone walls. Now I'm pretty sure that on that side of the stone wall is private property, and then both on the side of both of these is part of the public land, but I don't know. I've kind of stopped my scope of work, or at the stone wall area of working, or whatever you want, whatever I call it, scope of work. But like here, I've been here over the last couple of years, and like that one there is new, or I just walk by it. I'll just walk by it. But like here, there's some more of it. I mean, it just goes on and on. I can see an old cedar post from the garden over there. If you walk back in here, there's one there. There's an old tin right here. We're way in the back of that garden. So that's an old cedar post. That cedar post has been there a really long time. The house is right straight ahead. Looks like that might have been an old apple tree, a little bit of an orchard. Interesting, that looks kind of napped. Like it might have been pecked. I don't know. I think everything was touched by Indians. Everything was touched by the Indians. People get sick of me talking about it. They say people lived here history books say the last 5,000 years. I'm willing to bet that people lived on the ground that we're standing on pre-Ice Age. Whatever they call that. Was it 13,000 years ago they said, everybody, that this area was covered in ice? Something like that. You can kind of see over here another tree that I've done. But you know, I can't zoom and just cut that, and the green briar is kind of catching up over me, but you know, that's a tough place to be in. But I got on both sides here and there. I can get that tree right there, see? Still plenty of work. Plenty of work for me here. And this looks like it was like the original access. Oh yeah, that makes total sense. That this was the gate coming in, and those were like fence posts on the entrance. Interesting. Probably on, that was the access to the property when the sisters lived here. Good old country lane there. Private driveway more than likely. Not really old. Lots of broken glass. And again, come back here in 5 or 10 years and see what this looks like. Definitely more people. You never see people that are walking out here. Could just be the deer. There's a lot of deer here. Matter of fact, I don't like to come here in the early spring because they're pretty under the weather from the winter. I don't want to see the dog chasing them and then not, you know. Now they have food everywhere. But 2 months ago they didn't. Now it's time to get fat for a deer. And what do they call those things? The babies. They've got some legs under them now, under themselves now. Yeah, so as we walk back down this way here, I'm walking back. Yeah, so someday, oh, that's right. I thought about making a trail from here that way. But here we are here, back at those stairs again. I tried to save a cedar tree right here. Like, I think it was alive, but it's kind of hard to tell when I was cutting this stuff back. But it's dead now. I'm pretty, yeah. It definitely looks dead. It's a big cedar, but it was totally covered in green briar. A long time ago. I don't see any on it, but all the stuff was covered. Really, it's a little overwhelming at times. Now I came all the way, you can kind of see the house back up through the trees there. And I believe it's one of those water ditches right here. And I've fallen in here in the wintertime because it's always so muddy. And that leads us here back to a kind of meadow area. The briar's growing. And I've kind of been in here, cutting a little, but all the way that way is just way too much. That campsite is kind of in that direction, kind of due northeast. Looking south now. But we're back, heading back down. I don't have much else to say other than where we've been. So, been hanging out with Zip and Ellie out on the trail.